Welcome to the Music Business Buddy with me, Johnny Amos, podcasted out of Birmingham in England. I'm the author of the book, The Music Business for Music Creators, available in hardback, paperback and ebook formats. I am a music creator myself. I'm a music industry consultant, an artist manager and a senior lecturer in both music business and music creation. Wherever you are, whatever you do, consider yourself welcome to this podcast and to a part of this community. My goal is simple. I'm here to try and educate and inspire music creators from all over the world in their quest to achieving their goals by gaining a greater understanding of the business of music. Okay, my guest this week, everybody, I am joined by Amit Dubey, who is from Beat Street Music and Publishing in Mumbai, India. He is a great guy. He's somebody I've been trying to get on the podcast for a while. He's a busy boy, but I've finally found the time to be able to interview him and to just softly grill him on the Indian music market and how it compares to the rest of the world. Everybody, I am particularly interested in the shape and the landscape of the Indian music market for your benefit. Just to give you some scope, right? So in a country of, maybe 1.3 billion as a population, just over half of the people in India are under the age of 30. So what we're going to see from India in the next few years, in the next several decades, I should say, is exponential growth in various sectors, right? Technology, in media, and most certainly in music. So they're in a position right now where actually they really need to kind of get a good hold on how to move forward in their music industry domestically in a big country that speaks multiple different languages. What does their rights management look like? How do they move forward and evolve? How do they learn from other places around the world and build something which is absolutely bulletproof? Well, there's one particular person who I believe is one of the experts in that country to talk to, and that is Amit. Now, I've tried for a while to get him. I've finally got him, as I say, and just to kind of fill you in a little bit more about Amit and who he is and what he does. So he has like 20 odd years worth of music industry experience across metadata systems, across TV, across radio. He's worked at the Indian Performing Rights Society, or IPRS. He worked there for a couple of years and really helped to kind of straighten out some of their collection systems. Beat Street Music and Publishing really helps to kind of clean up on the back end of music royalty collection. So things like rights documentation, metadata accuracy, publishing admin, royalty tracking, recovery, distribution of royalties. These are all absolutely crucial aspects, aren't they? And it would be a real shame to kind of have, the Indian music market really evolve and kind of explode with positivity and then have to work retrospectively to fix their royalty collection. That would be a real shame, right? So instead, it's about being proactive and kind of setting up the right things like blanket licensing, like split sheets, like cue sheet production, all the things that, we have come to know to be a part of our practices here, although, they're not perfect around the world. And as we've discussed before on the podcast, there's a lot of different nuances when it comes to PRO collection, etc. around the world. Everyone kind of has their own little spin on it, but it's so important, right, that in India they get it right. And Amit is one of the people that really gives a very powerful education uplift on this subject in order to make that happen, right? So that is what today's interview is all about. And so I shall play it now. Amit, welcome to the Music Business Buddy. It's good to have you here. We've been planning this for a while and we're finally here. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Johnny. The pleasure is all mine. And I'm sorry I could not get the opportunity earlier and got the time to, join the session.
No,
but finally, we are here.
Yeah. Hey, Amit, you're a busy guy, right? You've got a lot of work to do. It's a busy time. So, no, don't worry. I'm just glad that we get the chance to do this now. I've got a load of different questions. I've scaled them down to kind of like just a handful, really. But let's start off with this, because I've said this to you before, I'm fascinated by the Indian market, with a population that of 50% of the population under the age of 30, so a very kind of digital native heavy audience. Are there structural differences between sort of what we see in the UK and the US compared to India in terms of like the music rights ecosystem?
Yeah. So, what I have seen, Johnny, in simple terms, the music rights ecosystem operates across three layers, as it happens globally: composition, sound recordings, and usage. So over here also that this is how typically it works. Composition covers the underlying song, the lyrics and melody, typically owned by songwriters and publisher. Sound recording owned by the label, and usage is how music is consumed, but via the streaming platform or public performances, which is where royalties are generated. So that's how the structure part is taken care of. In markets like yours, or US or UK, the structure is very well supported and it's very well established and standardized. Like you have organizations like ASCAP, BMI, PRS for music, and they have a predictable framework for licensing, reporting, and distribution. So in India, what happens? The structure is similar. For example, there's IPRS, Indian Performing Rights Society. I worked there for a couple of years.
Yeah, I
But
saw
the
that.
key,
Yeah.
yeah, but the key difference is how consistently the system operates. That's the challenge. So the challenge is less about structure and it's more about execution, what I've seen in India. Compliance, reporting, and data consistency is still there. These are the things which are still evolving. With time, they will learn because I've done many sessions, workshops with creators across the country, and they don't know what is publishing. That is also a problem. Some know, some people they are aware, but still a long way to go.
Yeah. Do you know something that I've talked about before, Amit, is the idea of the music publishing sector. I wish it was called something different because I think a lot of people find it confusing as to why it's called publishing when it's not really
Yes.
publishing.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes like when music creators have that kind of penny drop eureka moment as to like, oh, that's just the song side, not this side. It's being aware of that, it's like it's we expect, we hope that PROs around the world try and collect as best they can, but if the music creators don't always understand the difference between their own rights, that's also a problem, right?
True. Yeah, and I'll share a joke. You know what happened? In my visit to a city, I'll not name the creative person
Okay.
and not the city as well. So they told me, "Will you be publishing a book out of the songs I have composed and written?" So I go, no, dear, that's a different thing altogether. So that's where some creators are, and I must tell you, it's some creators, not all part of the country. But the good part about IPRS, where I have worked and where we initiated many workshops during my tenure, that has changed a lot. People have started attending workshop, be it online, be it physically, and they have started gaining knowledge about publishing. So the new breed of creators who are coming into picture, they know a bit, and the old one are trying to learn, and there comes the good people who are showcasing the knowledge, people like you who are supporting the artists with your podcast. So these things really help them because they do listen to the podcast, they try to go and check out on YouTube, Spotify, and when they have questions they come back to us because copyright in India is a bit different. There are many layers to it. I'm just digressing a bit from your
No,
topic,
no,
but
no, it's interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because over here, a composer can compose for any label. There's no restriction, and in the West, what happens if composer is tied to a composer's, for example, X, and if composer, the label or the publisher Y wants to use him, the the share will happen between two publishers also, territory wise. So the
Ah.
complexity increases there, but in India, they're free to work with anyone. So generally, if they are working with a publisher for X number of songs, they'll do that. Then they can jump into some other publisher, or simultaneously they work. So that complexity when it comes to registration of works in societies or distribution, it's very simple. Then also we face problem there. That's the reason I said execution is the problem. They have to put efforts to understand these things. They have to put efforts to type correctly, multiple languages. These are also issues which we'll discuss later. But These are the problem which I have been seeing of late.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Just you've said something there that's just kind of captured my imagination. Um, do you find in the Indian market that a lot of writers and producers tend to work more on like single song deals or like just a couple of songs at a time? Is that something that you're seeing in India? That kind of that free flowing kind of relationship between writers and producers as opposed to long term relationships?
So a yes and a no. Because suppose if it's a film song, a film might have 10 tracks or 5 tracks in that. And depending on the, because in India, the films also have music, songs are there. Yeah. So if someone got the opportunity to compose for a film, that's a big thing because they'll get the best marketing because the actors will be involved. So over there, the commitment will be only pertaining to that particular film. And post
Okay.
that, there are some publishing houses, the film publishing houses, what they do, they sign a contract for 3 films or 2 films, but they never, stop anyone from doing or working for other filmmakers or other producers of the film. And that's why I said a yes and a no. And they are
Yeah.
free to release as a self-publisher their works, or they're free to release tracks with any publisher or label for that matter in India. I have to use label and publisher because in India, all the labels are the publishers, so it's very easy for people in India to understand. But if I'll talk to them about in detail about no, you are a label, you are not the publisher, but that confuses them. So to keep it simple in India, it's very simple. All the labels are the publisher mostly. There are very handful of publishers are there in our country. They are specifically they are called publishers, but 99% labels are publishers.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's okay. Wow. I am drawing so many links between what you've just said and other territories. So, I recently spoke to somebody on the podcast who is kind of like a China division for America, and
Yeah.
and he said that in China everything is kind of like just one business, right? Publishing, management, live, everything's just kind of like, instead of like separate sectors within a wider industry. And I've noticed more and more in Europe in the last sort of 10 or 15 years, a lot of the dance labels that have always been a little bit further ahead in terms of how they structure their deals have started to move into this label and publishing model, um, which kind of makes sense because then they get more back end collection on all of the things that they're doing. And very often those songs really only get used once and then remixed, which fits that model really, really well. If we then compare that to the wider UK model, you know, in the 60s, it was kind of common practice for a lot of songwriters to just do one song deals with music publishers and then have the label side separately. And then somewhere along the lines from the 70s up to kind of like the 2010s in the UK, everybody went into catalog structures. And then I've noticed in the last few years, it's kind of gone back almost to what it was in the 60s, where there's a lot of songwriters that say, you know what, let me work on a per project basis. Like you were saying there with the films, let's work on these songs for this project and let's treat that separately from this project over here, which tends to give a bit more control to music creators to be more flexible. But the model of tying publishing and label work together to me makes a lot more sense, especially as we move forward. So that's something that you're seeing very much in India.
Yeah, that's the case over
Interesting.
here. Yeah.
Interesting. Is that just because it's more, there's more in it for companies that invest in music creators?
True that. That's the important answer which you have already given because that's more for them, and people over here, they don't want more complexity in their life. They
Yeah, yeah,
they
yeah,
just that's the reason I told you the complexity when it comes to publishing outside India is more in the West. Over here, we have tried to simplify it. Still, the execution always fails because there has to be willingness to do. They only focus on releasing their track. So they think that they have distributed the track via a distributor, their job is done. They don't understand the RPROs. They'll get
yeah.
royalties from them as well. Because
Interesting.
in a country like ours, when I joined IPRS in 2019, I left in 2025. And between that time, from 5,000 members, it went on to 15,000 members. And now in a country like ours, it's very less. You know, it's really, really less. We should have more members in our PRO, because they don't realize that their money is going into a black box,
Yeah.
because the system doesn't know whom to pay the money, even if the royalty is collected. You know,
Yeah, yeah. Do songwriter members have to pay to join IPRS?
yeah, there is a very, very minimal fee, and that's for lifelong membership.
Yeah.
In their
Okay.
website, you can see the details. So it's
Yeah.
hardly anything. It's rupees 1200 for a composer author for lifelong membership. It's
Ah, okay, that's pretty good. Okay.
very,
Very interesting. Okay. So you've mentioned there a little bit about the kind of the mistakes perhaps that some Indian artists and rights holders might make, leaving money on the table, let's say. Are there any kind of actionable lessons or any real world examples that you can think of where you go, yeah, there is definitely money being left on the table here?
yeah, yeah. So, Johnny, most creators don't lose money because of bad deals. They lose money because they are invisible in the system, as I was mentioning earlier. So, royalties don't get lost randomly. They get lost when the system cannot identify who to pay. And for that, there are three important things which I feel is important. First, ownership clarity is important. I have noticed firsthand a lot of songs are released without properly agreed splits. And later on, when the song is trending, there's a fight happening.
Hmm.
Second is a poor metadata. That is also a problem in the country because of inconsistent spelling, names, missing roles, incomplete credits. But once the bad data enters the system, it keeps breaking things downstream. It doesn't happen that it'll automatically get rectified and things will be fine. And the last important thing which I have noticed is a lack of proper registration. If works are not registered with bodies like Indian Performing Rights, IPRS for that matter, or PRS in UK, then from a system perspective, they don't exist.
Yeah.
And they don't realize it. You have released the track, you have distributed the track, but you're not registering your work with PROs. So in their system is a non-living thing. They don't know you.
Yeah, I love it that you said that because that is the reality, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, for independent artists releasing music, let's say in
yeah.
the Indian market today, what are the things that they need to get right? If we were to have like a checklist of the things that they need to get right in order to be able to collect those royalties, so song splits is crucial, right? You can't get the metadata right without getting the song split. So that should be an early conversation, right? That negotiating who owns what.
Yeah. See, if you insist on a set list, what I already told you in totality, one should focus on documenting the proper ownership, the splits. That is really, really important. Because if I keep on giving you the steps and what all they have to take care of, it'll be a long list. But
Yeah.
in totality, holistically, you know, so they need to ensure these things are maintained, like ownership clarity, which is a big, big issue in India. Then the poor metadata, because in India there are many languages. Out of that, 7, 8 languages are very popular, and tracks in those languages are released. And the scripts are different. But all the softwares in India which we use are in English. So a regional language guy typing their language track in English, they might type in a different word. The spellings might be different. And then some other composer uploading the same track with a different spelling. So there comes duplicate tracks with PROs. They have
Mm.
to, how to explain. I'll give you one Hindi word that's called kismat. Kismat means the fate.
Okay.
So during 60s and 70s, kismat they used to write with Q, Q as in queen.
Okay.
Now they write with K, K as in king. So this happens. If you don't have an ISRC, you have not they don't bother about ISRC, and you're typing song title with a different letters, then this also creates problem. And I've seen many issues during my period with PROs also, that They think that they have to register all the versions of their track in the system instead of populating the ISRC codes only. So these are also basics that they need to follow. They don't need to populate everything because the composer, author, and publishers are same. Only the recording, code needs to
Yeah.
be added, sound recording code, the ISRCs. So these are the things which are changing, which is happening. So I think when the work is getting distributed, that time only if the data is properly ingested, it really helps. But of course, when it comes to PROs, you need the real names because in India, people releases tracks with the name of Kaka, Bachas. So in reality, their real names are different. So, like, Beatles.
Yeah.
Beatles will not have a bank account, there will be
Yeah.
band members. The same thing in India. So that is how these educations have helped. They have realized, and now they have started during my period. Also, I've seen, and now the labels and the composer authors with whom I do the advisory work and guide them. So they ensure that they provide their alias names, the
Yeah.
spelling versions, because suppose on Spotify they have some other spelling, they must inform the PROs, because once that goes into the systems, it will be easy for them, for the PROs to track. So these are the basics which all the creators and self publishers should take into account. And proper registration is important. They think that without registration their work will be done. That's not the case. And one thing I introduced when I was with IPR is that they have to provide validation links. When I say validation link, meant either you have a CD cover if it's a 60s track and you have not uploaded it yet on Spotify's of the world, or a YouTube link or Spotify link, so that we can validate that it's your track. So
Ah.
this really helped the PR of the country to check many aspects. In fact, when I had my sessions with CISAC Asian summits in Asia, so over there also I proposed that this should be accepted globally, because I have seen other societies are also facing the problem of duplicate registrations,
Oh yeah.
because one track is registered by composer, the other by author, and if there's a spelling version or there's a space, double spacing is their system doesn't understand, they accept it. And then
Yeah.
somebody has to manually do it. So if validation links are provided, it really helps the PROs to check it thoroughly, because the
Yeah.
names will match, things will be correct. And if there's a different alias name, they can at least email their members and ask, is it you? So there can be a way that the money which is lying in the black box, which will come back to them. So
Yeah. Absolutely. That's very exciting because, you know, if we go back to the population thing again just for a moment, like I think to myself, right, in India, you're in a position right now where you could educate an entirely new generation, and they then educate that next generation. That's much like there's an opportunity there to make that happen, isn't there? Given how many young people there are.
true, there's a lot
Um,
of opportunity. Yeah,
Yeah, we don't really have that luxury in the UK in the same way. I often wonder if there might be like if we look at other platforms and other sort of financial technology tools, if there might be better ways to kind of actually verify identification. Like kind of like like when people get verified on LinkedIn, for example, and they have like the biometric verification
yeah.
against their authentic, or like maybe like the use of like eye color or eye shape or something like that. I mean, that wouldn't that be amazing? Like to be like there'd be no black boxing, would there? If that was a thing, I know it'd be very expensive to implement, but
That's a nice thought, but you know what? The AI has come into play, and what I am seeing over here that AI is challenging the existing systems, the technology part of it.
yeah,
When Spotify, Apple, or Amazon Music came into play, they prepared the streaming platform as per their vision that these many works will be uploaded or ingested during these many days. Now in a day it's more than 100,000 tracks are getting ingested. So basically, people keep saying that AI is doing this and that. I say AI is basically challenging the existing system. So what you are talking about, this is possible, very much possible, but we have to first ensure that whatever technology we have to ensure that it is correct. And to make it correct, you have to ensure you have to provide correct metadata. AI understands only data. And if all the trainings, if suppose you are talking about biometric, if somebody uses my name instead of yours, and my alias name is Johnny, and somebody does something here and there, and then what will happen? So that's the reason there should be one source of truth. When I see there are many sources of truth, which is not correct, not only in India, globally, I've seen that there are many sources of truth. So, yeah, what you are suggesting is right. If biometric can be implemented, why not? Because that might help a lot. Because right now, many PROs are not even using the fingerprinting, which is very much there since many, I think almost more than a decade or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that
That's what I
is,
think. I guess it's the cost of implementing it. But yeah, because there are
yes,
existing technologies like the fingerprint,
yes.
the thing that we use to open up our phones, right? Face ID, the things that we use to open up our laptops with fingers. You know, it's yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. There's been a lot of discussion around kind of transparency and royalty distribution in India. Do, it sounds to me like things are improving because there is that education lift, and it's that's why you are such an important figure in the landscape, because you're helping people to understand the differences between the song and the recording and the ISRC from the ISWC and these kind of things. So there has been progress. There's ongoing structural issues, as there are with a lot of PROs around the world, but you know, what would you like to see? What changes would you like to see going forward? What would you like to see sort of the IPRS improve on, for example, moving forward?
I think the right way to look at India is in three parts. One, what has improved? Second, where the system still struggles? And third, what needs to happen next? So, point one, when we talk about what has improved, India has definitely made meaningful progress over the last few years. The biggest shift, of course, is the digital platform. Streaming has brought a level of usage tracking and visibility that didn't exist earlier. Even if you go to Spotify, you will be able to see many tracks trending in the charts. You know, the collection framework have also become more structured with organization like IPRS, as we are discussing, and these are more organized approach. There are more organized approach which are being taken into consideration these days. And one interesting thing which has happened very recently, I wrote a blog also on that. uh, the initiatives like Sangeet Dwar. There was no single licensing window in India for public performances. So government of India initiated that, and then you can Google out, you'll find that website Sangeet Dwar. It really helps to reduce friction for users. So such initiatives is happening. These progress are happening in recent years. And when I come to second point, what are the ongoing structural issues? Yeah, where the system still falls short is in execution consistency, because this is the core problem I've been seeing since many years. In areas like television and radio, reporting is still not as robust or standardized as it needs to be. And Q sheet, for example, because background rights when it comes to there. Q sheet adoption, I'm talking about here. Q sheet
Yeah.
adoption is improving, but it's still not fully embedded across the system.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a really a huge problem in India. And with the rapid growth of OTT globally and regional music, this challenge becomes even more complex because scale increases faster than data discipline. And there has to be a data discipline which is not there at all. So these are the structural issues which I see in India. Yeah, when I talk about the next point of mine, that the possible future reforms direction. So I think improvement will depend on three things. A, stronger and more standard reporting practices, especially broadcast, OTT, and public performances. Because what happens, public performance happens, nobody bothers to send a set list. They record the clip and they send, and the PRs will have to listen to the entire recording and guess whose work is this.
Oh, okay.
That's a problem, yes. Second, better data discipline at the source. Ensuring that ownership splits, metadata are accurate, before music even starts the system, even before the distribution happens. You have to have that discipline. And the C point is continued simplification of licensing. so that user don't face friction in compliance. The opportunity in India is very, very large, but unlocking it will depend on how well the ecosystem can align tracking, data, distribution, all these things. So the direction is positive, but transparency at scale will depend less on technology, I feel, and more on consistency in data and process. So that needs to be taken care of. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. And you mentioned before as well about obviously like AI impacting rights
Yeah.
management and publishing and that kind of thing. Final question for you on this, Amit, because I really appreciate your insight here. It's very, very insightful. Um, I want to ask you about blanket licensing. So, you referred earlier to was it Sangit Waha? Is that, am I saying that right?
Sangeet is music, and Dwar is
Sangit.
that means door.
Ah,
So that's the word the government has used, and I'll share the link with you, Sangeet Dwar. So you can
thank
see
you.
that's a single licensing window platform. This is a really great move. Of course, they've just started it. There's still long way to go. But instead of taking licenses from different players for public performances for events, there's one window, which
Brilliant.
was long due. Finally, we
Yeah.
have that. Yeah.
That's a major step. Yeah. So will that allow for businesses, broadcasters, all sorts of different people to be able to just pay one fixed fee and then use whatever they want and just report back on what they've used?
Yeah, for public performances that can be used and that will help
Okay.
them because
Yeah.
that will be more standardized way of taking license. Otherwise, in India, you have to take license from IPRS, PPL,
Yeah.
RMPL.
Yeah.
So there are three, four players out here. So that created a ruckus and friction. So better to have one, you can call it a rate card or a
Yeah.
proper
Yeah.
structure so that people can, as per the number of people attending the event, they can apply and take the license.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's really, really, really good to hear because that should massively help things moving forward, I would think. Also, there's another. So we talked earlier in the episode about the idea of music creators becoming more informed and educated on the difference between their rights and their duties. But also when it comes to registration, but also there's an education lift for music users, right? The culture, right? The data discipline culture that you mentioned
Yes.
about, knowing that they need to fill in cue sheets and report
Yes.
on them accurately. That needs to happen for all of this to work, doesn't it? So I
Yeah.
think as time goes by, I think that'll just get easier and easier, I would think. Would you agree?
It will get easier and easier depending on the policies also. Because when it comes to cue sheets, in India, there's no regulation. Government is not forcing the broadcasters that they have to provide cue sheets to PROs. And broadcasters, they have an argument that they don't get royalties. Wi-Fi will provide cue sheets. So, but in other Asian countries, I've been attending many sessions conducted by CISAC when I was with IPRS. So over there, I've seen in some of the countries, the government, they have the regulation that broadcaster will have to submit cue sheets to the PROs. So I really like that. That's a nice move because otherwise it will be very difficult, because you imagine you yourself you're a creator also. So when you create a track, you're a creative person and populating a cue sheet is a tedious job, if
Yeah.
you have and in India when a film is of 3 hours and there are TV series of 1 hours, so one has to watch it again and there are thousands of episodes and they have to submit the entire cue sheet. It's a task for a creative person.
Yeah.
And that's why the broadcasters need to do that. And for that, we need some push from the government, which of course, they have done something. That's why Sangeet Dwar came into picture. And there are good moves being made by the government. So we are just waiting. Things are changing, things are improving. And finally, government is also helping us grow in a better way in India. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that helps. Yeah, yeah, that'll really really help. Sorry, there is one more thing I'd love to ask you about, if that's all right. Is have you? I'm interested to see again with so many like young people. in terms of like audience and like the average young person's kind of musical tastes, have you noticed any kind of cultural shifts? Like, for example, when you think of like the Indian market or the Indian markets, I should say, because there's so many, it's so multifaceted and layered with different languages, as you mentioned earlier. A lot of people think of Bollywood, for example, and that kind of crossover between music and media and the role that that plays in how people discover music. You know, is the younger generation Z in India, are they embracing Bollywood in the same way that previous generations did, or have their tastes
No.
changed? Or
Yeah, no, no. Recently, off late, independent music is growing like how.
okay,
And it's not like only Bollywood film songs will work. In fact, it's going the other way around gradually. If you'll Google out, you'll see many artists from rest of the world are coming to India for events. So in India also, many independent artists are growing. The things are changing, and it's good for us because if you don't support independent artists, you'll not get the variety. And also the way we consume music has drastically changed. The economics has changed, and this also because it brings to an interesting topic which I keep talking about. The economics have changed, not the creative person. People keep saying that these younger guys are creating bad songs, that they are not creative and stuff. I said, no, guy, no, no, no. That's not the correct way of looking at them. Why? Because earlier, if you remember, yesteryears, what happened? People used to buy CDs, albums. They used to buy the entire album, which has five songs, five singles, or five tracks in it, and they used to own that. Now it's a subscription-based model, and number of usage, how many times that song has been played. On the basis of that, money will be given to the artist. So the entire dynamics has changed. So they are pushed by the economics, and that's the reason they are trying to be more creative. There's a Instagram short reels of 15 second, and in 15 seconds they have to create something interesting that people play it again and again. That's a huge task that was not earlier. If you will listen to Indian music of 60s, 70s, 80s for that matter, the prelude was of 1 minute, 20 seconds, 1 minute, 30 seconds
right,
with no voice, no vocals. But now we have a generation which listens to 15, 20 seconds and decides whether I should listen to this track or not.
yeah.
So I think they are more creative. This current generation are more creative. They are pushed more, and they are taking us to the next level. Of course, there are challenges at times. They just follow the algorithm. This track is working. There's a boon and bane, you can say.
Yeah.
They just follow the algorithms instead of following their heart. So
Okay.
that is also I've noticed. But whosoever sticking to the core creation part, to their heart, when they create something from their heart, then any AI or anything which is coming into picture, they cannot replace a human being because they are created via the data which has been ingested in the database. So I feel that it speaks of both. That answers your question. Anything else you have, if you have in mind on this topic, you can ask. Yeah.
Oh, that answers the question. That's perfect. Yeah, yeah. I love how you explain things, Amit. You have a good way of explaining things and simplifying things. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
It's good. It's good. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. You're doing an extremely important job at Beat Street Music and Publishing, and and all of your experience, what you've done at the IPRS, and everything else you've done in your career. I wish you good luck moving forward. You're a great guy, Amit, and you're in a great place, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you so much, Johnny. All the best to you as well. And let's see, we can collaborate in future for something and help more creators, because the idea
I
of
would love that.
Beats, yeah, the idea of Beat Street is basically not only to help creators who are established, but also to help street musicians. That's a CSR thing which I've been planning since ages. But let's see, that needs funding. So I've been working on that, so that I believe that every street across the globe has some musical talent, and
Absolutely.
that needs some nurturing, and that nurturing can only happen if we people like us educate them. So that's how it is. So that's what I've been trying to do that. Yeah.
That is that is a potential global partnership right there.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, that, you know, okay, maybe it epicenters itself out of India, but that could be a global partnership. That really could. I think that will resonate with a lot of people.
I do think so.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah. Well, maybe we should check back in a few months and talk about that as well, because that's another subject that would be fascinating. But for now, thank you, Amit. I greatly appreciate your time here today.
Thank you so much, Johnny. Thanks for having me.
Okay, there you have it. What a lovely guy. What a lovely, lovely guy. He's a family man. He's a hardworking guy. He's doing a very, very, very important job, for Indian music creators and for Indian music publishers and record companies. Wasn't it interesting, by the way, to see that link point between Indian publishers and Indian labels, and how actually they're very often kind of the same thing these days, which actually makes a lot of sense to me. When I spoke to Jonathan Heater recently, from Middle Eight, a couple of episodes ago, about his China division for the West into China. One of the things he talked about with China was like how a lot of the music industries in China are actually not separate, right? Live and sync and label and distribution and publishing, it's all kind of under one roof for a lot of companies. Yeah, it makes sense, right? Because, there's a lot of different people that are doing multiple jobs, right? So when it comes to rights collection and metadata and all these different things, so it's interesting to see that the Indian music market has started to evolve in that same way. And I gave a comparison to European dance labels and the way that they do that. Again, it makes sense to me to be able to operate that way. It also kind of falls in line with how independent music is actually connects itself to people around the world, because, you can be your own label, you can be your own publisher, you can be your own manager. It's wonderful, right? But at the same time, sometimes if you do then partner up and work with other professionals moving forward, it doesn't have to be a all in it together forever situation, right? So kind of working on like one song deals or per project deals. This is the way that things are changing and moving forward, right? More artistic control, etc. I think what Amit's talked about today certainly falls in line with a lot of that stuff. So I thank him for his time today. I think he is a very important cornerstone to the Indian music market, and also how it exports, internationally and stuff as well. So anyway, I hope you found that useful. I know I certainly did. I hope you did too. Have a great day. Until next time, everybody, may the force be with you.